Alright guys, so we have some new and some older-ish products from Pulsar, but quite honestly, all of these are like around a year old or less than, and I just want to talk about how Pulsar has done a really great job at coming out with a product and then coming out with revisions based on customer feedback, and also like some of these special edition products that we have on the table as well, just to give people options, because we know that all of us nowadays are chasing like all these different aesthetics that we like to have for our desk setups, just to add a little bit of personalization and customization to the places that we spend a lot of time working, gaming, doing whatever, hanging out with friends online, all that good stuff. So huge shout out to them for doing a great job at giving us different options. What we're going to talk about today is the new, obviously larger SuperGlide XXL mouse pad, some of these mice from Pulsar, and first we're actually going to talk about the new Pulsar SuperGrips. And guys, these things are definitely super grippy, so you can use the pre-cut versions of these SuperGrips. I've been going with some of the smaller ones I use on different mice, and I gave a stab at the larger ones too, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. You can get them pre-cut, you can get them uncut. It just depends on what you want to do and how you want to customize your mouse. But if you want to cover your entire mouse, you can use the uncut version and cut it to your liking to cover, again, your entire mouse. But basically, I have them on my Pulsar X2. But before you stick these grips on, you're probably going to want to see where you're actually going to want to grip with your mouse, so that you put the grips in the appropriate spot. These things are like super duper grippy. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, I'm like hardly applying any pressure at all, and these grips are staying super well. I can even take off like one of the fingers on the right side, hold at a 90-degree angle, and you guys can see how good this grip is. One thing that I mentioned in my recent X-ray pad grip tape video is just the fact that these Pulsar SuperGrips are very sticky. So if you want to do like any lateral movements, it is like, I'm not gonna say impossible, but it's pretty hard to do. So just keep that in mind, that you gotta make sure that you put your grips where you really want your fingers to be placed, because these are not really gonna let you move around as freely as something like the X-ray pad cicada wings. I like those grips a lot. They work very, very well. They give you a consistent grip, but they do give you a little bit more freedom than the Super Grip does. The Super Grip is for a 120% locked in feel. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna go with the Super Grips from Pulsar, which I don't think is a bad thing, but I just want you guys to be aware of that before you make your purchase decision. Now we also have the giant SuperGlide XL mouse pad. I'm gonna zoom out like as much as I can, but like it's just not gonna fit in the frame on my top-down setup. But basically, we have a 980 by 420 millimeter SuperGlide XXL pad. But if you guys seen my YouTube short, you would know that like two of these things, like from the ground up, would be like taller than me. Like, it's absolutely nuts how huge this thing is. Some people did want a desk pad SuperGlide, and that is definitely what this is. It's huge, it's heavy. I would say 100% is worth the money based on the build quality. Put this thing down, it's not sliding around on your desk at all. Partially due to the weight, also partially due to the rubberized base that they use. It's very good. Next, let's talk about Pulsar SuperGlide V1 versus SuperGlide V2. Now, before we get into the discussion about the glass pads themselves, basically, if you get either of these, you don't want to use either of them on that giant SuperGlide glass pad that I just had on my desk. These are made for cloth mouse pads. So cloth or Cordura or any fabric-based mouse pad, not glass on glass action. That just sounds like a bad idea, just so you guys are aware. But basically, the SuperGlide V1, these were very, very glossy. SuperGlide V2 has more of like a satin matte finish, so you get a little bit more longevity out of the SuperGlide V2 compared to the SuperGlide V1 developing some scratches over time. The only reason that mine is scratched is because I actually grinded it on the glass mouse pad, just to show you guys in an upcoming short that I have not to do that. But otherwise, from a regular mouse pad, you would just get like some like little micro scratches and whatnot over time. But basically, SuperGlide V2 should be more durable. So here we have the X-ray pad Trigun, which is a Cordura mouse pad. Gives you a good level of speed and control, like especially if you're using PTFE feet. Like, you push this thing, you get a good amount of stopping power when it comes to your ending movements. But on the SuperGlide V1, it is a lot higher initial friction, so your ending movements are a lot more harsh and your beginning movements take a little bit more effort. Where the SuperGlide V2 comes in, they just kind of slide around the Cordura pad, turning this from being a speed but control pad to more of a speed pad. So that could be a pretty big determining factor on if you want to get a certain mouse pad or if you want to apply these particular mouse feet to your mouse to get a different result on a particular mouse pad that you may like or want to try in the future. Let's move on to the next pad. So here we have the Odin Infinity V2. And as we can see, we've got a good amount of stopping power when it comes to your initial friction and ending movements. Like initial friction is pretty low. Stopping power after you let go or you're trying to come to a stop is pretty high. But you move on to the SuperGlide V1, we can see initial friction is lower. Stopping power is also good, very smooth, of course, because these are the nice glossier skates. And then again, SuperGlide V2 slides around a little bit more. So again, another pad that goes from being a fairly controlled pad with a good amount of speed, good amount of stopping power. Now you have low initial friction and low ending friction as well. And it does become a little bit harder to use, especially if you want to use this for like a tac shooter. But if you want to use this for a more fast-paced shooter like Call of Duty or a Destiny 2 type of game, this might not be the worst combination, but it does make it a little bit harder to play if you are not particularly looking to increase the amount of initial friction and ending friction for controlling your mouse movements. If you want a little bit more freedom, go with the SuperGlide V2 and a Cordura or another pad that's like in a similar weave to an Odin Infinity or Artisan Heian. Next, we have the Odin Andromeda mouse pad. And again, we're gonna be testing the same 3 mice. So what we can see with the PTFE mouse feet, low initial friction and control your mouse appropriately because the pad is not really looking to do it for you when you're using PTFE skates. So it gives you a lot of freedom in the beginning and also giving you a lot of responsibility at the end of your flicks. Moving on to the SuperGlide V1, you got high initial friction and high ending friction too. So during your movement, it's very easy and graceful. But when you want to dynamically change directions, it is going to be a little bit more effort required because the glossy finish on the mouse feet is definitely increasing the amount of friction that you have on this pad. So you will have to be a little bit more deliberate. This is a very smooth combo, but again, it's something that you probably would want to think about if you want to play some tac shooters. But I do think that this would be a really good combo for a game like Destiny 2 or COD. Now using the matte SuperGlide V2s, again, the trend is very consistent. We see that this is a little bit quicker than the other 2 choices. So again, with your movements, because of the low initial and ending friction, you have to be very deliberate with your mouse movements and maintain a huge level of control. So SuperGlide V2, I like the idea of them, but quite honestly, depending on the level of control that you're looking for, maybe better to stick with the SuperGlide V1 or whatever standard PTFE mouse speed that you have on your mouse. So next we have a few different versions of these Pulsar mice. So we have the original X2. This is one of my oldest X2 units. This is the X2 Mini Bruce Lee edition that features optical switches and obviously a very unique design. Then we also have the X2 Super Clear edition that features Juana blue shell pink dots. This is one of the newer designs that they have available. And just before this one came out, this is the Random Frank P edition. They also released the Boardsy edition as well that also feature Juana blue shell pink dot switches. But honestly, guys, I'm just really glad that they have a lot of alternatives depending on what you are looking for in terms of the design and colorway of your mouse. But I am also really glad that Pulsar plans on having a lot more new products released very soon throughout the end of the year. And as we can see, they have a ton of mice coming out. So X2 V2, which I'm sure is going to have a lot of improvements, but they're also going to be adding a wired version, which is going to be cheaper. So that's very nice. They're also adding an X2 that has a higher hump. That's going to be very cool. I think that's going to be a nice and interesting competitor. I think that an X2H Mini would be a very interesting mouse to try. Then the X2A for ambidextrous. Those are just the X2s. And here we see that Pulsar has also talked about releasing other mice other than just different models of the X2, which basically is all we took a look at today. But we have the X2 V2 and X2H, and we also have the X-Lite V3 and the ES series coming out later this year as well. One of these I may already have an early version here that I can't exactly tell you which one it is, but I will say that from the very early version that I have, I was very impressed with the quality of it from that early on. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video before I say something that I'm not supposed to say, but thank you guys for watching. If you are interested in any Pulsar products or even any upcoming Pulsar products, or want to check out my previous reviews, I will have all that stuff linked in the description below. But thank you again for watching. I will see you in the next video.